What is regenerative farming? Regenerative farming, usually referred to as regenerative agriculture, is a broad term that was coined in the 1980s, which consists of holistic farming practices. The purpose of regenerative agriculture is to improve soil health and reverse climate change. It attempts to do this through expanding biodiversity, removing carbon from the atmosphere and depositing it into the soil, and increasing soil structure. In very basic terms, farmers attempt to do this by not using chemical pesticides, instead using strategies like crop and livestock rotation, composting, no-till farming, silvopasture practices, and agroforestry. Regenerative farming improves the health of topsoil, which is rapidly disappearing across the globe. This will result in a better food system for everybody if done properly. There is a lot of information to digest right from the start of this video, so let's break down everything we just talked about a little bit further. Why is regenerative agriculture important? Regenerative farming, or agriculture, is important because current farm practices are not sustainable. This will result in less and more expensive crops, and ultimately, the inability to grow crops altogether. Current practices are leading to topsoil breakdown. According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, it takes 1,000 years to generate 3 centimeters of topsoil naturally. And if the current breakdown rate is left unchecked, all topsoil would be depleted in 60 years. In the last 150 years, half of the most productive soil has disappeared, leading to dead zones, erosion, and decreased nutrients in the foods we're eating. But why is topsoil important? It's important because the world grows 95% of its food in the uppermost layer of the soil, the topsoil, which makes topsoil the most important component of our food system. So what exactly do farmers do for regenerative practices? As stated before, regenerative farming is really a list of practices, a set of guidelines that will lead toward the goal of good soil health. There are quite a few practices, and not all of them are done by every farmer, but here are the most consistently used practices that are followed. 1. Reduce tilling or no-till farming practices. Starting off the list with a bang is probably one of the easiest and most impactful practices a farmer can move towards. No-till farming allows for less soil disruption, which will promote a more diverse soil microbe structure and improve soil structure for your plants to grow in. Tilling soil causes soil erosion and releases a large amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. No-tilling means the carbon stays trapped in the earth, reducing global warming. Carbon is not the only reason to adapt a no-till mindset. Soil that isn't tilled has better water penetration and retention, as well as less soil crusting. Organic matter builds over time, increasing crop resistance to crop stressors, which increases overall yield. In addition to all of this, the cost reduction benefits to not tilling, including not having the labor of tilling the soil, less requirement of fertilizers, less water resources required. No tilling really is a win-win practice, which leads the march in regenerative practices. One of the last points I want to briefly touch on further is the less requirement for fertilizers. And this is a great segue into another practice worth talking about: reducing the use of artificial synthetic fertilizers. Synthetic fertilizers create an imbalance of microbes in the soil, impeding the natural process of plants to absorb nutrients, and therefore is not conducive to regenerative practices. Synthetic fertilizers create a system by which plants become dependent on the artificial fertilizer, creating a vicious cycle. Additionally, artificial fertilizers hasten the climate crisis due to the effects of the chemicals seeping into the atmosphere and the water. Regenerative farming's goal is to have a completely natural system that exists between the plants and the soil organisms. The next principle is promoting biodiversity and incorporating cover crops. Crop rotation and the use of cover crops lead to a greater biodiversity. Cover crops are planted with no intention of being harvested. Instead, they are used to protect the soil. Without cover crops, soil is vulnerable to erosion, which causes the soil to dry out, wash, or blow away. Crop rotation, on the other hand, is growing different types of crops in the exact same location each growing season to ensure that nitrogen-fixing plants, like legumes, add nutrients to the soil that other plants will absorb. The next regenerative principle is animal integration. Animal integration is the process of reintroducing livestock to agricultural crops, which gives natural opportunities for nutrient cycling. Animal grazing after crop harvest helps with the conversion of high carbon areas into low carbon organic manure. Grazing on cover crops allows nutrient cycling from crop to soil. The next topic is silvopasture practices. Silvopasture is the integration of livestock, trees, and pasture all on the same land. The benefits of this is that the combination of all three of these operations combined has a benefit which outweighs these operations had they been done individually. This leads to increased revenues and cost reductions. Perennial forage is planted between trees. Animals obtain nutrition from this forage and then accelerate the cycling of nutrients to the soil. The practice also provides shade to the animals in hot summer, naturally through tree cover, as well as protection from the wind and other elements. The trees then benefit from animal manures, and there is a benefit of additional cash flow from livestock with the tree operation. This leads into our last regenerative practice of agroforestry. Agroforestry has a similar concept as silvopasture, except that it is focused mostly on a plant operation. But it's essentially a land use management system in which trees or shrubs are grown around or among crops on pasture land. The benefits of this include enhanced yields, high income generation, increased biodiversity, improved soil structure, reduced erosion, and carbon sequestration. So, to summarize, current farm practices are not sustainable. Not only that, rapid changes in weather, rain, and increased storms are putting pressure on already strained crop production. In order to have a sustainable food source, topsoil must be preserved. Currently, it is being destroyed beyond what can be repaired. The solution is for farming to move away from the current large corporation practices of field specialization and move into land that incorporates a wide variety of crops and animals in order to restore the health to the soil and ensure that soil is available indefinitely into the future. Though it will require education and training, the benefits far outweigh any downsides, and what farmers who do adapt to these new principles have to look forward to are higher crop yields, healthier soil, and increased profits.